The story of the bridge at Remagen. Why the Germans said the war is over. Introduction. As March 1945 dawned, the Rhine River stood as the Third Reich's final, desperate frontier. The German army, battered and depleted, clung to its banks, hoping to stem the relentless Allied advance. Across the river, the Allied forces, driven by the promise of a swift breakthrough, eyed this formidable natural barrier. Unbeknownst to many, a single unassuming railway bridge at Remagen was about to become an unexpected key to victory, a symbol of collapsing resistance, and the catalyst for a cry that echoed the despair of a nation. The war is over. By March 1945, all but one strategic bridge across the Rhine had been systematically destroyed on Hitler's explicit orders, transforming the river into an almost impassable chasm. Imagine a cold, crisp March day. American soldiers, weary from relentless combat, were mentally preparing for yet another brutal, costly river crossing under heavy fire. But then, around a bend in the river, an unimaginable sight awaited them. A bridge, miraculously intact, the last gateway to the heart of Germany. Section 1. The Impregnable Barrier. The Rhine in March 1945. In the waning days of World War II, the Rhine River transcended its geographical reality to become Germany's ultimate natural rampart. For centuries, this majestic waterway had served as a formidable defensive line, and in March 1945, it assumed its most critical strategic importance for both the Axis and Allied powers. The German High Command, under the increasingly paranoid leadership of Adolf Hitler, viewed the Rhine as the last bastion against the encroaching Allied armies from the west. Their strategic calculus was simple: hold the Rhine by time and perhaps, by some miracle, turn the tide of a war already lost. The plans and expectations on both sides were starkly different. For the Allies, the Rhine represented a colossal obstacle, a final, bloody hurdle before they could push into the German heartland and link up with Soviet forces advancing from the east. Intelligence reports and strategic assessments painted a grim picture of a costly river assault, predicting heavy casualties and protracted engagements. The sheer width and swift currents of the Rhine, combined with the expected fierce German resistance, promised a grueling fight. Crossing it would require massive engineering feats, daring amphibious operations, and sustained air support, all under the constant threat of enemy fire. Conversely, for the Germans, the Rhine was not just a river but a psychological and physical bulwark. It was the last geographical feature capable of offering a semblance of defensive integrity. The hope, however faint, was that the river would allow them to consolidate their shattered forces, erect new defensive lines, and perhaps even unleash some of their fabled wonder weapons to repel the invasion. This desperate hope was underpinned by an ironclad directive from the Führer himself. On March 4, 1945, Hitler issued a categorical and chilling order. All bridges across the Rhine were to be destroyed at the enemy's approach. This was not a suggestion, it was an absolute command. The responsibility for the timely demolition of these vital crossings fell squarely on the shoulders of local officers, with the gravest of consequences for failure, the threat of court-martial and execution. This command transformed the Rhine into a deadly trap for anyone failing to comply. For the Allied soldiers, forcing the Rhine meant an arduous campaign fraught with prolonged battles and immense losses. For the Germans, it represented the final opportunity to dig in and rebuild their defenses, however momentarily. Psychologically, the Rhine was far more than just a river. It was the demarcation line between a protracted war and an imminent, conclusive end. It was the last vestige of perceived security for a collapsing regime. A lesser-known fact underscores the German overconfidence in the Rhine's impregnability. The German command was so convinced of the river's unassailability that many reserve units and even key headquarters were positioned in close proximity to the eastern bank. They regarded the eastern shore of the Rhine as a secure rear area, an assumption that would soon be shattered by the unfolding events at Remagen. This misplaced certainty would contribute significantly to the chaos and demoralization that followed when the impregnable barrier was breached in the most unexpected way. Section 2. An unexpected gift of fate. A look at the Ludendorff Bridge. In the unfolding drama of March 1945, the focus of both Allied and German attention narrowed dramatically to a specific point on the Rhine, the Ludendorff Bridge at Remagen. This was no ordinary bridge. Its history, unique construction, and specific features would predetermine the extraordinary events that were about to unfold around it. The Ludendorff Bridge was a testament to early 20th century engineering, a robust structure built during the height of World War I. Its construction spanned from 1916 to 1918, a period when the strategic importance of rapid troop and supply movements was paramount. Designed primarily as a railway bridge, it was an imposing steel truss structure, stretching an impressive 325 meters across the powerful currents of the Rhine. Its primary purpose was to facilitate the movement of troops and material to the Western Front, a critical artery in the German war effort of its time. However, the bridge's most distinctive and, ultimately, fateful features lay not just in its main span but in its immediate surroundings on the eastern bank. Here, two prominent tunnels were built directly into the steep cliffs overlooking the river. These were the famous Remagen tunnels, designed with a specific military purpose in mind: to provide sheltered access to the bridge and to offer protection for infantry and equipment. In March 1945, these tunnels were still serving their original function, providing a secure staging area and defensive positions for the German forces tasked with protecting the bridge. Their presence would later play a crucial role in the initial chaos and subsequent strategic importance of the bridge's capture. Beyond its physical attributes, the Ludendorff Bridge had also accumulated a certain mystique over the years. A persistent local rumor circulated among the residents of Remagen, a whispered tale that added a layer of intrigue to the bridge's design. This rumor suggested that the bridge's original architect, purportedly an opponent of Nazism, had deliberately incorporated weak points into its construction. These alleged design flaws, so the story went, were intended to impede any future attempts at its complete destruction. While this fascinating piece of local lore has no historical confirmation and remains purely a rumor, its very existence highlights the deep connection the community felt to the structure and the dramatic events that had shaped its past. It also speaks to the human desire to find deeper meaning and even subversive intent in moments of historical significance. As American forces, specifically a reconnaissance patrol from the 9th Armored Division, approached Remagen on that pivotal day in March, their expectation was to find nothing but shattered remnants. The standing order from Hitler was clear, and previous experiences had taught them to expect only blown bridges over the Rhine. Yet, as the patrol rounded a bend and the Ludendorff Bridge came into view, the reaction was one of stunned disbelief. An American lieutenant, among the first to lay eyes on the miraculously intact structure, famously exclaimed, with a mixture of shock and elation, "God damn, that bridge is still standing." This spontaneous cry captured the essence of the moment. A sudden, unexpected shift in fortune that defied all expectations and promised to alter the course of the war. The impregnable barrier of the Rhine had, against all odds, offered a path forward, an unexpected gift of fate in the form of the Ludendorff Bridge. Section 3, March 7, 1945. The day that shook the world. The 7th of March, 1945, was a day etched into the annals of World War II. A pivotal moment when the seemingly impossible occurred, shattering German defenses and igniting a spark of hope for the Allies. This was the day the Ludendorff Bridge, against all odds, fell into American hands, initiating a cascade of events that would dramatically accelerate the end of the war in Europe. The chronicle of this extraordinary day began around 1300 hours, 1 p.m. A reconnaissance patrol, part of the 9th U.S. Armored Division, under the command of Lieutenant Carl Timmerman, crested the hills overlooking Remagen. Their mission, like that of many other patrols along the Rhine, was to scout the river crossings, fully expecting to find them destroyed. What they saw, however, defied all expectations: the Ludendorff Bridge intact and spanning the mighty Rhine. This discovery was instantaneous and electrifying. Upon realizing the immense strategic value of the standing bridge, Timmerman's unit immediately moved to secure it. However, the German forces positioned on the eastern bank, specifically those in and around the famous Remagen tunnels, were under strict orders to destroy the bridge once the last retreating German units had crossed. This created a perilous race against time. The German engineers, laden with explosives, were waiting for the final elements of their own forces to clear the bridge before pressing the detonation button. Their adherence to protocol, waiting for the safe passage of their comrades, proved to be a fatal delay. As the American tanks and infantry launched their daring dash towards the bridge, the German defenders, realizing the imminent threat, finally initiated the demolition sequence. At approximately 3:30 p.m., a thunderous explosion ripped through the air. The ground trembled violently, and onlookers on both sides of the Rhine braced for the inevitable collapse. From the center of the bridge, flames erupted, and massive plumes of smoke billowed upwards, temporarily obscuring the structure. A vivid artistic depiction captures the raw intensity of that moment. The earth shuddered with a roar. The bridge trembled, bucked, and flames and plumes of smoke burst from its center. As the smoke cleared, the hearts of all who watched stood still. The bridge, swaying but still standing, had settled only a few meters. This imagery perfectly encapsulates the collective gasp of disbelief and relief. Despite the colossal explosion, the Ludendorff Bridge, miraculously, remained standing. It had absorbed the blast, sagged slightly, but its core structure held. The German attempt to destroy their last remaining Rhine bridge had failed spectacularly. This catastrophic failure on the part of the German demolition teams was a turning point. The partial detonation meant that the bridge, though damaged, was still passable. For the Americans, it was an unforeseen stroke of luck, an open door to the heart of Germany. For the Germans, it was a moment of utter despair, a breach of their last natural defense, and a sign that the war, for many, was truly beyond salvation. The events of March 7, 1945, at Remagen irrevocably altered the momentum of the Western Front, paving the way for a rapid Allied advance that would swiftly bring an end to the European conflict. Section 4. The war is over. The birth of a legend. The dramatic events of March 7, 1945, at the Ludendorff Bridge culminated not just in a strategic victory for the Allies, but in a profound psychological defeat for the German forces. This moment of critical failure gave birth to a phrase that would become legendary, encapsulating the despair and shattered morale of a nation. Der Krieg ist vorbei. The war is over. This section delves into the precise circumstances under which this pivotal phrase was uttered and what it truly signified in that specific, desperate moment, marking not an official capitulation, but the collapse of the fighting spirit. The fundamental fact underlying this section is crucial. Following the unsuccessful demolition of the bridge and the subsequent commencement of the American crossing, panic erupted among the German soldiers. Those trapped in the Remagen tunnels, as well as those positioned on the remaining defensive lines, witnessed the unthinkable Allied tanks and infantry pouring across the Rhine. It was at this precise moment of overwhelming realization, when their last natural barrier had failed, that the desperate cries of Der Krieg ist vorbei began to resonate. It is vital to interpret this phrase correctly. This was not a command issued by an officer, nor was it a formal declaration of surrender. Rather, it was a spontaneous, raw cry from the hearts of ordinary soldiers. These were men who, in that instant, understood that the final, insurmountable barrier had been breached. The last line of defense had fallen, and with it, any remaining sense of purpose or possibility of meaningful resistance collapsed. It was a moment of stark, unvarnished truth, where the relentless propaganda about wonder weapons and an ultimate victory shattered against the brutal reality of American tanks rolling onto the eastern bank of the Rhine. For these soldiers, the illusion of continued struggle had vanished, replaced by the grim certainty of defeat. The phrase encapsulated the sudden, stark realization that the war was irrevocably lost. For individual soldiers, it signified the end of their personal ordeal, the end of fighting for a cause that had proven untenable. It was a visceral reaction to the breakdown of order, the failure of command, and the overwhelming evidence that their last stand had crumbled. An anecdote, though possibly apocryphal, perfectly illustrates the tension and contrasting perspectives of the moment. It is said that one German officer, upon hearing the desperate cries of Der Krieg ist vorbei from his men, grimly retorted, "For you, perhaps. For us, it has only just begun." This dark response subtly hinted at the severe repercussions that awaited those deemed responsible for the bridge's failure, and the brutal reality of Hitler's wrath. It served as a stark reminder that while some soldiers found release in the declaration of defeat, for others, particularly those in command, the battle for survival and accountability was just commencing, underscoring the profound and multifaceted impact of the bridge's capture on the German psyche. The Ludendorff Bridge at Remagen had become more than a mere crossing. It was the physical and symbolic point where a nation's will to fight finally broke, encapsulated by four simple, desperate words. Section 5, The Führer's Fury and the Final Act. The inexplicable failure to destroy the Ludendorff Bridge at Remagen and its subsequent capture by American forces ignited an uncontrollable rage in Adolf Hitler. For the Führer, this was not merely a strategic setback but an unforgivable act of incompetence and cowardice that betrayed the very spirit of the Third Reich. His furious reaction unleashed a wave of terror and desperate, often suicidal countermeasures. Immediately upon receiving news of the bridge's capture, Hitler launched what became known as the Remagen court-martial. In his eyes, the failure to demolish the bridge on time was an act of treason, demanding immediate and severe retribution. The consequences were swift and brutal. For German officers, Major Hans Scheller, Captain Fritz Brack, Captain Gustav Georg Krahe, and Lieutenant Karl-Heinz Peters were singled out for blame. They were summarily tried, condemned to death, and executed by firing squad. These were not judicial proceedings in any real sense, but rather a barbaric display of Hitler's absolute authority and his ruthless determination to punish perceived failures, sending a chilling message to any who might falter in their duties. Yet, Hitler's fury did not stop at executions. He became obsessed with rectifying the catastrophic error, ordering every available resource to be directed towards the bridge's destruction. The German military launched a series of frantic, desperate assaults on the captured bridge. These attempts ranged from conventional artillery bombardments and air raids to more desperate and technologically advanced measures. In a testament to the severity of the situation and the depth of Hitler's desperation, for the first and only time in the war, Germany deployed its formidable V-2 rocket weapon in an attempt to destroy the Ludendorff Bridge. Several V-2 rockets, potent symbols of German technological might, were launched towards the Remagen area. However, due to the inherent inaccuracy of these early ballistic missiles, none managed to achieve a direct hit on the bridge. The rockets either missed their target entirely or caused only superficial damage in the surrounding areas, a poignant reflection of the futility of these desperate measures against the now secured bridge. The psychological impact of the bridge's loss on Hitler was immense. His adjutant later recalled Hitler's own words on the matter, which vividly illustrate the depth of his despair and the strategic significance he attributed to the incident. The loss of the bridge at Remagen initiated an irreparable catastrophic development of events on the entire Western Front. This statement, from Hitler himself, underscores how profoundly he believed the capture of the bridge had sealed the fate of his regime. It signified not just a tactical defeat, but the unraveling of the entire Western defensive line, accelerating the inevitable collapse of Germany. The Führer's rage, the executions, and the desperate, failed attempts to destroy the bridge post-capture all served as a grim final act in the unfolding drama of the Ludendorff Bridge, highlighting its unparalleled impact on the closing stages of the war. Section 6. The Legacy of the Iron Giant. The incredible drama surrounding the Ludendorff Bridge at Remagen did not end with its capture. Indeed, its story continued for another 10 days, cementing its place in history before its final, dramatic collapse. The Iron Giant, as it might be called, bore the brunt of relentless attacks and sustained damage, ultimately succumbing to its wounds, but not before leaving an indelible mark on the landscape of both war and memory. The bridge, though captured and secured, remained a priority target for the desperate German forces. Having failed to destroy it before its capture, they redoubled their efforts to obliterate it afterwards, hoping to at least slow the massive flow of Allied troops and supplies across the Rhine. The already compromised structure was subjected to continuous bombardments from artillery, air raids, and even the aforementioned V-2 rockets. Each attack further weakened its integrity, compounding the damage from the initial, failed German demolition attempt. The inevitable finally occurred on March 17, 1945. Unable to withstand the constant pounding and the accumulated structural damage, the Ludendorff Bridge, with a thunderous roar, completely collapsed into the swift currents of the Rhine. This tragic event not only marked the physical end of the famous bridge, but also claimed the lives of 28 American combat engineers who were working tirelessly on or near the structure, attempting to repair and reinforce it against the ongoing attacks. Their sacrifice underscored the immense strategic importance of the bridge and the continuous danger faced by those who worked to maintain this vital crossing. Interestingly, not all parts of the original bridge disappeared into the river. A little-known fact about its fate is that the distinctive twin towers on the western bank, which had served as crucial defensive positions and iconic landmarks of the bridge, remained standing after the main span collapsed. These imposing stone towers were not destroyed during the war itself. It wasn't until the 1970s, decades after the fighting had ceased, that these remaining structures were eventually demolished. The reason for their removal was pragmatic. They were deemed to pose a threat to river navigation on the Rhine, a testament to the enduring presence of the bridge's remnants long after its wartime role had concluded. Today, the site of the Ludendorff Bridge at Remagen has been transformed from a scene of conflict into a powerful symbol of peace and remembrance. On the remaining bridge piers, the Peace Museum Bridge at Remagen now stands. This museum serves as a poignant memorial, dedicated to preserving the memory of the events that unfolded there and educating visitors about the senselessness of war. It reminds future generations of the immense human cost of conflict and the sacrifices made by ordinary soldiers on both sides. The museum ensures that the story of the bridge, a story of desperation, ingenuity, sacrifice, and the ultimate collapse of a desperate regime, continues to resonate as a powerful lesson for peace. The legacy of the Iron Giant endures, not as a monument to war, but as a beacon for reconciliation and understanding. Conclusion. The story of the Ludendorff Bridge at Remagen is far more than a mere footnote in military history. It is a powerful microcosm of the closing days of World War II in Europe. The bridge, a silent witness to a continent engulfed in conflict, suddenly became a central character, its fate inextricably linked to the unfolding tragedy and ultimate liberation. Its miraculous capture on March 7, 1945, was a decisive moment, disrupting the German High Command's final defenses and accelerating the inevitable Allied thrust into the heart of Germany. The desperate cry, Der Krieg ist vorbei, the war is over, uttered by German soldiers trapped and demoralized by the bridge's unexpected survival, stands as the enduring symbol of this pivotal event. It was not a formal declaration, but a spontaneous, visceral expression of shattered morale and the profound realization that the last natural barrier had fallen. This phrase encapsulates the moment when the grand narratives of propaganda and desperate resistance gave way to the stark reality of impending defeat. It marked the psychological breaking point for countless ordinary soldiers, signifying the collapse of hope and the dawning of an end to the brutal conflict. In its dramatic capture, its short-lived, crucial role in the Allied advance, and its eventual collapse, the Ludendorff Bridge at Remagen transitioned from an anonymous railway crossing to a legend. It became the physical embodiment of the turning tide, a testament to unexpected fortune in the chaos of war, and ultimately, a poignant reminder of the price paid by those caught in the maelstrom. Today, the Peace Museum stands as a solemn guardian of this memory, ensuring that the history of this iron giant, where the story of a forgotten bridge merged with the grand narrative of a great tragedy and a great liberation, continues to resonate as a powerful appeal for peace. The bridge at Remagen stands as a testament not just to the end of a war, but to the enduring human cost of conflict and the profound hope that emerges from its cessation.